our buddy, TJ Rives. I've known TJ for many, many years. He has been on the sideline for the Bucs for a couple of decades almost at this point. TJ, it is great to have you on G&D here in the nation's capital as we scout Tampa Bay. How are you?
Always great to be with you, my friend. And yes, I used to always call you the young Jedi back 20 years ago when we were working together, Sirius XM satellite radio. I can't get away with that anymore. You're not. You're the full-on Jedi now.
There's gray in his beard, TJ. I can see it from right here.
He's got the beard. He's got kids. The young thing doesn't work anymore for that. And yeah, you and I have been around each other for a while, and this is year 20 for me with the Buccaneers on the sideline. And looky here, Washington Commanders and the beginning of the Jaden Daniels era comes to Tampa Bay this weekend, guys.
Going to be fun. So let's start with this. The Bucs last year were pretty good and made the playoffs and won the division and put up a decent fight in the playoffs. Why aren't people picking them to win the South again?
Great question. And a year ago, everybody crapped on this team and thought they were going to have an awful season. Salary cap hell, post Tom Brady. You know, Baker Mayfield's been passed around like the offering plate at church. Nobody wants him. All these different subplots. And you know what they did? They put their head down. They won the opening game in Minnesota. They won the week 3 game in New Orleans that both turned out to be big, and won some key games at the end of the year, blowing out Jacksonville, beating Green Bay at Green Bay. And what do you know? Won the division. When a lot of people on the record thought 3 wins, maybe 4 wins, they end up winning 9 games, and they end up winning a playoff game. So now we come back around to this year, and I agree with you. I don't understand why there's more run being given to an Atlanta team that's got a first-year coach. We love Raheem Morris. They've got some pieces. They've added Kirk Cousins, who you guys are familiar with, but what version of Kirk Cousins are they getting at this point? I don't understand it either, why they're getting more run than the team that's won the division each of the last 3 years and has a lot of the same players back from all 3 of those teams, guys.
TJ, I want to go deep dive on this defense here because obviously we're focused on Jaden Daniels and the revamped offense. So I want to go to your defense first. There's a player at all 3 layers that I think is outstanding. Vita Vea, one of the best at his position there at nose, D-tackle, whatever you want to call it. Levante David is still a badass. And then Antoine Winfield's a star. Where is this group vulnerable? Where can they maybe be had? And do you think Washington has what it takes to have it?
That's a great point you make, because in talking with Todd Bowles this week, the Buccaneer head coach, we talked about that middle of the defense, straight through the middle of the defense with Vea, David, and Winfield may be one of the best defensive players in the NFL that gets no attention really because he plays in Tampa Bay. He doesn't play for the Cowboys. He doesn't play for the Steelers, you know, the high marquee teams like in New York or in LA. But Antoine Winfield is a tremendous hitting safety, great ball skills in terms of interceptions, fumbles caused. So he'll be a disruptive force. The real key is what you alluded to. What about the outside? What about on the ends? Are they going to contain Jaden Daniels if he goes to take off? Are they going to be disciplined or not? The Bucs are very aware that Daniels can burn you with his feet, and he may elect on more than one occasion to do the safe thing, which is, okay, I'm going to tuck it and go try to get 5, 10 or more yards, as opposed to stay in the pocket and take a big-time hit trying to deliver the ball. So the Bucs better be ready for Daniels to get outside of those guys you were talking about and try to make something happen.
TJ, remind me, just as a refresher from the offseason, what have they lost in terms of key departures and then big additions? Who came in?
So basically, they re-signed the most prominent guys. Mayfield, at the top of that list, signed a 3-year deal. Again, he played for basically quarterback minimum wage last year, $4 million. We'd all love to make $4 million, but in quarterback money, that's not very much. So he did get a significant raise. Key's back. You re-signed Mike Evans when a lot of people thought he would walk as an unrestricted free agent. He agreed to a new 2-year deal. The left tackle, Tristan Wirfs, is due to be a free agent at the end of this year. They gave him a new massive deal. Winfield could have walked, guys, after a great year as a safety, a Pro Bowl year. He re-signed. So even though the Bucs didn't go outside the building, even though they didn't go outside the 813 area code, they had a really good year in free agency, bringing those guys back. And I can't say there's a significant loss. Devin White, the linebacker, the former number 1 pick, was really playing poorly for a lot of last year. He left to go to the Eagles. But he's not even playing for the Philadelphia Eagles right now. He's on the bench. They didn't even bring him to Brazil tonight. So I don't know that the Bucs have a significant loss off the team, and they did bring back some guys that are going to be keys.
TJ Rives with us here, breaking down the Bucs at Bucs sideline guy. Joins us here on Grant and Danny. Let's go to the offense. You mentioned Baker Mayfield. I am not a Mayfield guy. I feel like you guys got that honeymoon Mayfield. That's as good. That's the best version of Mayfield, and I'm not sure it's going to get that good again. What's the vibe?
Are you trying to put me in a bad mood on a Friday and just kibosh the season that I'm not getting better Baker Mayfield a year later?
A little bit, because we've been doing this for decades. Like, you guys got like the casual Tom Brady Super Bowl and some other stuff. We've been starving in the desert for like 1,000 years, and I'm just looking for a morsel. But what's the vibe on Baker Mayfield down there? It sounds like you guys are more bullish.
He has done all of the right things. He is fantastic to deal with on and off the air. And you're right. You could read into that, okay, he's got to be on his best behavior. He was on his 4th team in 3 years after the Browns said no thanks and traded him to Carolina. Carolina cut him, and then the Rams picked him up, and he didn't re-sign with the Rams. People are going, what's going on? But I think this guy realizes he's got a chance to put a stranglehold on this job and develop a legacy over the next 2 or 3 seasons beyond just last year. I love his moxie. He is a leader. They follow him. Evans, Chris Godwin, Tristan Wirfs, the left tackle, is probably his best friend, his pass protector. They love this guy. So for right now, it is a honeymoon phase. And let's see what happens. Because certainly in Cleveland, he did make the playoffs in Cleveland, but he didn't have near the talent on offense that he has down here to be able to do it again. So let's see if he can do it again.
A career high 28 touchdowns to go against 10 interceptions last year in his first 4,000-yard passing season for Baker Mayfield. Got him paid in Tampa Bay. How about the guys he's throwing it to? I know Mike Evans is back. We were kind of kicking around how much he's got left today. He goes for 1,000 every year. And last year, his numbers were awesome. 79 for 1,200, led the NFL with 13 touchdowns. Chris Godwin seems like the linchpin in that receiving room right now, kind of more still in his prime. But what about Jalen McMillan, who they drafted? Who else do we have to pay attention to from a weaponry standpoint?
And as for Evans, he had a tremendous second half of the season. Spectacular catch and run against Carolina, a couple of other huge catches for touchdowns in a couple of other games down the stretch of the season. So Mike is one of the premier receivers still in the NFL. Godwin is kind of an underneath guy, and he was a little disappointed last year that he wasn't utilized as much as an outside receiver. He's gone back to the slot. And you mentioned the name Jalen McMillan, rookie from the Washington Huskies. He's a guy that was catching a ton of passes and touchdowns from Michael Penix at Washington as they got all the way to the national title game. And McMillan has turned heads here in Tampa Bay and is going to be on the field probably a lot in game number 1 as the third receiver. We believe that, so let's see if McMillan delivers early. I'm giving a little – I think everybody's pretty much done their draft by now because the season started last night, but Jalen McMillan may be available out there. A little sleeper fantasy advice with Grant and Danny on a Friday. Jalen McMillan, Buccaneers, third receiver.
I like it, TJ. By the way, Godwin, 83 grabs, which sounds like a ton, but he had 104 the year before that, 98 before that. But he did go for over 1,000 for a third straight year, 4th out of 5 seasons for Tampa Bay. Last campaign, TJ Rives here.
Buccaneer receivers are no joke, my friend. You know that. They are no joke.
Well,
the Commanders will have their hands full.
That is an issue here.
Washington's corners are a joke, so that's not a good exchange necessarily.
That's not a good mix.
Exactly.
That is not a mix that you want right now, yes.
How about, though, one area we talked about on the field, they didn't lose a lot player-wise. I do think Dave Canales is really good, and he's now the head coach in Carolina. He was the play caller in the OC for people that don't know that. It kind of was a quarterback whisperer with Baker, who raved about him all year. Tell me about Liam Cohen, their new OC, and whether or not you agree that the Canales loss could loom large.
Well, it's significant because you got to start over, and it's a different offense and different terminology. Now, interesting, Mayfield was with Liam Cohen and Sean McVay in L.A. for the final 4 games of the season 2 years ago, 2022 season after Carolina. They mutually agreed. Baker said, I'm not going to re-sign here. You're not playing me. Can I go somewhere else? Because the Rams were in need of a quarterback, and he spent time for about 5 weeks with Liam Cohen. Cohen then left and became the offensive coordinator at the University of Kentucky, and they had a really good season last year, including being able to run the football. Now, this is the first opportunity for him to be the play caller for the Buccaneers after Sean McVay was the play caller, even though he was the coordinator out in L.A., And people are interested in this offense. They're interested in how much zone blocking and kind of bootlegs that you're going to see. You didn't see any of that a year ago. We saw a little taste of it in the preseason. It will be fascinating, and it may be a work in progress for a little bit, but at least Mayfield and Cohen have an existing relationship, guys.
TJ, how's this offensive line? I view them as good. I think some of the grading sites and people that do that sort of thing don't view them maybe as kindly more middle of the pack, but I feel this is a good group here with the center draft in the first round, and I'm a big Tristan Wirfs guy, but I guess he's going to be playing on the left more. Give me your thoughts on this O-line and where they are coming into the season.
They had to address center, and the kid is Graham Barton out of Duke, who is a monster. He's won the starting job, not unexpectedly, as the number 1 pick, and they love him for his run blocking. Interesting that Barton played left tackle his final year at Duke, but he had been a center the first couple of years at Duke. He was an all-everything center out of Nashville, Tennessee, Brentwood, Tennessee. And unlike the three of us, he got into Duke. So there we go. And now is a number 1 pick, and they've got big expectations on him. I think we're all fascinated down here against Dan Quinn's defense. Can they establish a ground game? One of the knocks on the Buccaneers is the ground game has basically been non-existent. Even in the Brady Super Bowl year, it was not great. It was only good at times with Leonard Fournette. So let's see if the Bucs can establish some things on the ground. And again, it may be a work in progress with the line and the new offense here, but they're very excited about Graham Barton, the number 1 pick at center.
TJ, last one for me, just broad brushed in the division. We started by asking why they aren't the favorites. How do you like their chances, and what do you make of the other clubs in the South?
What am I supposed to say on the show when I'm the Bucs sideline guy? I love the Bucs chances. Of course I do. New Orleans is a threat. Derek Carr obviously is there now for a second year. That's a tough place to play. But again, I say the Buccaneers went in there and won in the Superdome early on in the year. There are going to be some marquee games. There's a Thursday night game right away in October, early October, Buccaneers at Falcons. And Raheem Morris, again, is the former Buccaneer head coach. Raheem Morris was the defensive coordinator when they won the Super Bowl with the Rams. Now he's the Falcons head coach. That's going to be an interesting situation. Carolina's a mess. Dave Canales, good luck to you for year number 1 with a lack of talent, but it's still going to be knockdown, drag out, Buccaneers, Saints, Falcons.
Write me a headline or two here. If it does go Washington's way, TJ, how did it happen? What's kind of the script, do you think?
Buccaneers turn the ball over. Buccaneers make defensive mistakes, and the Commanders take advantage with big plays. Those are two things that give Washington a chance to win. If the Buccaneers take care of the football, if they don't allow Jane Daniels to make plays with his feet, let the big play happen, it should be a good day in Tampa Bay for another opening win. By the way, Buccaneers have never, ever, this is the 49th year of Buccaneer football, have never won on opening day 4 years in a row. They're going for that Sunday. Only one other time have they won 3 opening games in a row. That was 79, 80, and 81 before the young Jedi was on the planet.
That's right.
The last time the Buccaneers did that.
TJ,
so let's see.
By the way, we got listeners headed to the airport, going to Raymond James Stadium, which is one of my favorites in football. Love the place. Any tips, any pointers? Where should they be spending their time? Where should they be dining?
Bring tips, bring the sunblock and hydrate up, because even for a 4 o'clock kick, it is going to be hot. It is going to be humid. The Commanders will be in the dark jerseys. So let's see how they hold up physically. But look, what is there not to like down here? I mean, you got the beach, you got the weather, you got great seafood. Come enjoy until you tee it up with the Buccaneers at 4 o'clock on Sunday, and then we'll see what happens.
TJ, really appreciate the insight, man. Enjoy the weekend.
Boys, behave. Great to be with you, and we're happy to have the NFL back.
You and me
yes,
both. Sir. Great to hear your voice again. There's TJ Rives. Bucs sideline is where he'll be on Sunday during the game. Why do you think Tampa Bay is not getting more run as the potential division champion? I thought maybe he'd have some type of answer. Well, remember, they lost this or they lack that. They basically are bringing the same team back from a year ago. I know it was only 9-8. To me, it's a referendum on Baker Mayfield. It's just that people really don't think he will replicate 4,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, 10 picks. And with that receiving room, I don't know why he couldn't do that again.
Yeah, I think that's the best use case. The other is the year before they were terrible, right? And so maybe last year's viewed as a bit of a fluke with the division being very down, a very pedestrian AFC South where nobody was any good. Excuse me, NFC South rather, where nobody was any good. It's sort of unsexy, that a 9-8 team that was just okay. to repeat it. Everyone's always looking for the new, more exciting thing. We go chalk all the time when a team like Kansas City or Buffalo in a division, they've been the king for a little while. But if somebody's just pedestrian, if someone's all right, we always look kind of to the next thing to overlook it to a degree. Because I'm with you. I think Atlanta got a little bit better than Tampa, but it's not unreasonable that they could absolutely win that division because you already mentioned it. To me, it's mostly about Mayfield.
The injury to Yaya Diaby, who I watched, don't ask why, but like halfway through the offseason, I watched this like Bucs draft special, and it talked about their group last year and this year, and they had such high hopes for him. They kind of have fallen in love with his game. This is actually not a bad matchup for Washington's tackle position because there's not a beast. You know what I'm saying? Like next week when you play the Giants, you've got to deal with Brian Burns and potentially two guys that can get home and really beat you because of Thibodeau. Logan Hall, a second round pick, was going to be making, in his third year basically, and Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. Those are the edge rushers. I'm not saying it's a bad tandem, but you heard TJ say it's a question. They don't really know what they're going to get out of the edges. They know that Kalijah Cansey was kind of Aaron Donald light, in my opinion, when he peaks. And then Vita Vea, like they got Allen and Payne essentially in the middle. But I'm glad that they get to open with a bit of a soft landing spot for Brandon Coleman, Cornelius Lucas, Andrew Wiley at tackle. And that, to me, means this isn't a terrible matchup for Washington's offense.
And I meant to ask TJ, and I did, and I'm kicking myself. But Logan Hall, the kid that they drafted to be their edge defensive end, whatever you want to call it in the formation, I know hasn't been practicing. I know he's been beat up. He's got a foot thing. I don't know if he's playing or not in this game. So I haven't seen an updated practice list, but I know that as of Wednesday or Thursday, I think he was DNP. So that's something to watch as well. To me, this is more about what you're doing on the interior, right? I mean, Vita Vea is just a grown-up who is incredible, right? If you're not double teaming, he's going to affect the play in some way unless you're going in a different direction. That's something that I think is sort of necessary, and you're going to have to deal with it. So this sort of revamped interior, new center, obviously Cosby is the same on the right side, but you add an Allegretti. How are they going to deal with Vea? And if I'm Tampa Bay, I'm moving him around some. I'm going to be probing and prodding to see who can block Vita Vea and how often and how well. But you've got to have him in mind, no matter what you're doing, if you're Cliff Kingsbury and company, or even Biotish and to a degree Jaden Daniels, because that guy is not only a space eater, but he is an effector of plays and a disruptor. And they've got pretty good layers. I mentioned this to my question to TJ. Winfield might be the best safety in the NFL. If he's not, he's top 3 or 4. You're pretty good up the middle. Their secondary, probably 10, 11, 12 overall, depending on your grading site, whether it's Pro Football Focus or otherwise. It's not terribly vulnerable. They gave up the 7th fewest points in the NFL last year. They pretty much have everybody back. This is not a bad group.
Logan Hall, one of 2 Bucs who did not practice yesterday, to your point, with a foot injury. As far as the Commanders go, the update, Marcus Mariota, DNP with a chest after being limited on Wednesday. And then Johnny Newton yesterday didn't practice, but was on the practice field, at least at the start of the session that the media got to see today. He's a wild card who early in the year, it sounds like maybe will be pretty limited, but soon enough, ideally, we get a real look at him because we didn't see him at all in the preseason.